Good evening and welcome to the Sturbridge Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of January 17th, 2024. First of all, I would like to welcome back Mary Ann Thorpe to our board.
Thank you.
Welcome. And I'll have the board introduce themselves.
I am Mary Ann Thorpe.
Tom Welch.
Diane Trapasso.
Liz Banks.
Josh Cole.
The agenda for tonight is approval of the minutes of November 15th, 2023. At 6:35, we have a public hearing for a variance, 92 Stallion Hill Road for Vertex Towers LLC. The applicant is requesting a variance from Article 14, Section 300-14.2, Table of Standards, which requires 150 of frontage on a street to permit the construction of an operation of a wireless communications facility where 100 feet is provided. At 6:55, we have a determination, 20 Camp Road for Gina Messick. She is requesting to raise the existing house and construct a new single-family home and a new septic system on the premises. Town planner update, old and new business, and then adjournment. We have the minutes of November 15th, 2023. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of November 15th, 2023?
I make a motion to accept the minutes from Wednesday, November 15th, 2023.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? We have 4 and 1 abstention because Mary Ann wasn't here.
Does anyone have Fidelis's cell phone? Mary Ann, do you have Fidelis's number in yours?
I don't think
If you
I
do,
have.
can you just text him? And then I
I don't think I do.
I think I have his.
Gina Mesick is a determination. You could always,
If it's okay with the applicant?
if it's
can
okay
you-
with the applicant, maybe wait
Gina,
a
I don't
couple of
have
minutes.
Fidelis's
I
number.
don't
Okay.
have his number.
No, I don't either.
I think I should get their numbers. I don't.
Usually.
Okay, we can.
And do you mind if we
Do you first?
wait a couple of minutes? We're absent one member, so do you mind if we take one order of business before you to see if he arrives?
Thank you. Okay.
All right, so Gina, you can come up here.
Okay, so what we're going to do right now, because we're waiting for another board member, is the determination. Okay.
You want me to give you an overview?
Okay,
So here with you this evening is Gina Mesick, and she owns the property at 20 Camp Road. And I'm not sure if there was a photograph in your, I think there are several photographs that were provided in your packet. As you can see, the home is in really poor condition. It's open to the weather. It hasn't been occupied in some time. The property needs a new septic system, and she is proposing to tear the home down, install a new septic system, and build a new home on the property. And the new home will meet all of the zoning requirements, so it will meet all the setbacks and the lot coverage requirement. However, the lot is non-conforming, which is why she is before you this evening.
Do you want to see a picture of the house?
do you have it? We don't
Have it in there.
It's not in the packet?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is,
Yeah.
okay.
Not
What did you ask for?
a picture.
Oh, it's in the electronic packet,
Yeah.
not the paper packet.
House now?
Yeah. If we could just,
Okay.
oh, wow. Okay, okay.
Oh, Oh, you've seen it already?
Yeah, right, right, yeah.
It's a beauty.
It's,
It's a beauty.
it is a house.
Well, the lady that lived in it literally put what? She has like, if you look at the floor, all of a sudden you see it dip down. There's like 5 rugs there. There's a hole. She just put rugs on it, and it keeps sinking. If you get up underneath it, they tried to jack it up. I mean, it's a mess, completely. So, the poor lady lived in that house with a blue tarp on her head out of her house for like 5 years, something like that. Finally took off.
Okay, and do we have any questions? Does anybody?
I just have one. On this map, it's the proposed, it's the existing house. Is there one of the proposed on here? Is it going on the exact same?
It's the exact same thing. We just want to square 2 things off. Can I go up to the board?
Yep,
Can I
it's
go
right
up
up
there?
on the screen, yes.
So basically, this is the house standing. This little square here comes around like this. This is a deck.
Okay,
Okay, so what we wanted to do, this is open space here. We just wanted to bring it across and square it.
okay,
And then on the deck here, this is an open space. We just wanted to bring it over and square it.
okay, and it's within the setback, so.
Yeah, I can't move the house because I think it's grandfathered in, I guess. That's what you call it, whatever, but we can't move it, but we can build, we want to build just right where it is.
Okay. My only question.
Yep.
I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Mary Ann.
So in the application,
It is. One level.
so when I look at it, it sort of looks like a split level to
It
me?
is.
Okay,
The new one would be a split level.
okay.
So they're gonna have to dig out the foundation, so it'd be part, I guess I understand it's part foundation, so part of the foundation's above and part's below.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Tom? Josh?
No questions.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Does anybody want to make the motion?
Oh, did such a great job the last time. Let me see, I might have.
Or I can just read something and somebody can motion what I read?
I have a motion for determination.
You need help with that?
Or I can, want me to just, okay.
Yeah, you read it.
Grant, somebody can make the motion. Grant the determination to Gina Messick for the property located at 20 Camp Road to raise the existing house and construct a new single-family home and a new septic system as shown on the plans and documents submitted. The proposal does not intensify or create additional nonconformities, and the owner may apply for a building permit. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Do we
Okay,
have to put the plan numbers in?
no, because I said plans and documents submitted, so they're all listed in the minutes. Okay, vote, all in favor? Okay, unanimous, so you're all set.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
I guess something must have happened. Diane, could you just sign this one?
Thank you.
Be careful in the parking lot.
I will, thank you.
Okay, all set.
I'll probably see you tomorrow.
I will not be in tomorrow, but
I can apply then for permits.
but you need to have your septic design approved first.
I haven't even heard from them yet. So.
Okay. All right. But yes, good to go on our
Oh,
end.
so don't do nothing until I get that.
That's right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a great night. Thanks.
Okay, now we're going to have to open up the
Yes.
public hearing. Does anybody want to read it, or should I read it? You want to read it? Okay. Liz will read the public hearing notice.
In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 10 and Section 11, the Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, January 17th, 6:35 PM at the Center Office Building located at 301 Main Street, Sturbridge, Massachusetts, 01566, or by virtual means. If circumstances warrant, in accordance with the applicable law, on the application of Vertex Towers LLC for the property located at 92 Stallion Hill Road, tax assessor parcel 605-0281-092. Pursuant to Section 300-18.22 of the zoning bylaw, the applicant is requesting a variance from Article 14, Section 300-14.2, Table of Standards, which requires 150 foot of frontage on a street to permit the construction and operation of a wireless communications facility where 100 feet is provided. The proposal requested may be viewed at https://www.sturbridge.gov/zoning /Board of Appeals /pages /recent filings, or arrangements can be made to view the application and plan by contacting the Sturbridge Planning Department at 508-347-2508, or by email at jlacy@sturbridge.gov. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on this proposal should appear at the time and place designated. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted in person and may be conducted via remote means if circumstances warrant. In accordance with the applicable law, this means that members of the body, a public body, as well as members of the public may access this meeting in person or via virtual means. https://global.geomeeting.com/join/4726-75877. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post the town's website an audio or video recordings, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Diane Trapasso, Chair, Sturbridge Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you. Okay, before we have you present, I would just like to make a comment that this board cannot consider the health effects of the proposed facility. However, information has been provided to the board to indicate that the proposed facility meets FCC emissions limits, and the applicant will review this during their presentation tonight. So just introduce yourself, and it's all yours.
Good evening, my name is Parisi.
Sorry,
Again,
delayed
my
reaction.
name is Francis Parisi, representing the applicant Vertex Towers LLC. Just by way of clarification, we are here tonight seeking a variance not for a telecommunications facility, but because a proposed telecommunications facility is going to be on a lot with insufficient frontage. So we're here tonight seeking a frontage variance. I really didn't want to be here. We tried really hard to find a facility and design a facility that was fully compliant with your zoning bylaw. Your zoning bylaw gives what I would call primary jurisdiction over telecommunications facilities to the planning board, and we filed an application to the planning board and are in the middle of that process. We had a hearing in December. We have another one next week, and because I needed the variance, they want you guys to make that determination before they make a final determination. But and they asked at the planning board meeting what I would call ministerial and administrative type questions, what we're satisfying. But They need you to grant the variance so that they can grant the special permit for the telecommunications facility. But at the same time, even though we're not asking for a variance for the telecommunication facility, the Telecommunications Act does kind of play into this a little bit, because under state and federal law, you have to look at variance requests a little differently because it's a telecommunication facility. I'll be honest, Gene told me, don't ask for a variance because the zoning board hates giving them. They can't do it. They don't do it routinely. Originally, as proposed, when I first talked to Gene, we were going to ask for variances for the facility itself. We were going to be a little bit taller than the zoning bylaw requires, and Gene said, don't do it. But because of the insufficient frontage, we do require the variance. But you have to look at it a little bit differently in the context of a telecommunications facility. By way of introduction, Vertex Towers is what we call a wireless infrastructure developer. For the most part, the names that you've heard of before, Verizon and AT&T, have gotten out of the real estate business and have partnered up with real estate developers like Vertex to build wireless infrastructure. It's a process that's been very well received in the Commonwealth. We've been very active in both Worcester County and Franklin County and Hampden County. We've been approved and under construction in Worcester County and Hubbardston, Gardner, Shirley, Tewksbury. We've got a facility going up in Munson down here in Hampden County. We've got a lot of work going up the Route 91 corridor north of Northampton, Coleraine, Conway, Deerfield, Ashfield, Buckland, Row. And the reason I say that is because as real estate developers, we can be a lot more cognizant of your zoning bylaw. We can work with folks like Gene and the land use professionals to cite these things very appropriately. We look very carefully at your zoning bylaw. We also are beholden to the telecommunications carriers. In this case, we've partnered up with Verizon to build this, but we tell them to look at it a little bit differently and don't kind of railroad things through from a telecommunications perspective, and we've been very successful in that regard. Verizon, I'm sure you've heard of before, they're just trying to improve telecommunications in the Sturbridge area. Verizon already has multiple telecommunications in Sturbridge, but for those of you that live here, and I've actually experienced it personally, telecommunications is still lacking, and it's really a result of how telecommunications have evolved. When I first started doing this, when Verizon and everyone started doing this, we thought this was going to be a mobile technology, and we were going to do it, we were going to try to cover the Mass Pike and Route 84. But as we found over the last several years, the technology is becoming more residential, and also along the, everyone's using their cell phone on the secondary and tertiary streets, Route 20 and then Stallion Hill Road, the residential neighborhood around there. And then also, we're using them more in buildings, in a building like this, which is a much denser structure to impede a telecommunications signal in all the commercial buildings. And what we have found in industry, and what Verizon has found specifically, is given the topography of Sturbridge, Route 20 is kind of in a valley. The Stallion Hill is a very large hill that looms over Route 20, and then going up Brookfield Street and the other side of Route 20, going up towards the Mass Pike, is another hill, but the Route 20 corridor is in a valley. In addition, this site is also designed to provide better coverage to Old Sturbridge Village, because what's happened over the last several years is people have gone to mobile ticketing, and then they show up, they buy their tickets online to Old Sturbridge Village, and they find out they can't get a telecommunications signal in the parking lot of Old Sturbridge Village. And that situation is actually getting worse instead of better. One of the issues that a lot of telecommunications companies, including Verizon, are encountering are what we call capacity issues. When more people are using existing cell sites, the coverage from that cell site diminishes. So as you can imagine, when the traffic backs up on Route 84 or even along Route 20 during the Brimfield and some of the more popular events in town, when there's a very large crowd on a Saturday at Old Sturbridge Village, the existing coverage is shrinking. In addition, as we start evolving towards newer and better technologies, places that we had coverage even 3 and 4 years ago are having much less coverage now because of the evolution of telecommunications technology. Our phones do more, and they work at faster speeds, and we now have internet access, and we can send photographs and watch streaming video. But that requires a better signal than we had when our phones just talked or just texted. And so we're finding areas, especially like Sturbridge, where telecommunications signal is lacking. But I'm going to go back and just talk about the frontage issue here. The lot that we're on is a very large, let me see if I can find a map for it, a very large parcel off of Stallion Hill Road. It's about 22 acres. There's a house already on there, but there's still substantial, what I would call upcountry, because it goes way uphill from the site, from Stallion Hill Road. The lot itself had a lot of frontage, and back, I think before the frontage requirement for this zoning district was reduced, or actually expanded, several frontage lots were sold off along Stallion Hill Road with planning board approval. There was an approved subdivision. And then it was left with 100 feet of frontage. Originally, I think the predecessor in title had thought they were going to build a subdivision in here. And so they left enough frontage for a street. And they were going to build a street off of Stallion Hill Road, and then divide the bigger lot into more house lots. But given the slope, given the substantial amount of ledge, they really couldn't develop it for anything more than a single house lot. But there is an existing driveway off of Stallion Hill Road right along here. Let me see if I can, right along here that services the existing house. What we're proposing to do is utilize that existing driveway, do any kind of activity on the driveway, no additional construction, use the driveway, and then follow an existing cart path that kind of meanders through the lot up to the top of the hill where the tower will go. So from a neighborhood perspective, there's going to be no more curb cut on Stallion Hill Road. There's going to be, the driveway is sufficient for our purposes. So there's really going to be no change from Stallion Hill Road at the frontage to change anything. I also note that I think a couple years ago, the landowner did an expansion of their house and added an addition to it. And that expansion required a variance from this board as well, or at least a determination that they were not materially expanding a non-conforming use. And so they received that variance, and I think the zoning board went through all the criteria, and I think that was just a couple years ago, maybe 2021 or 2020. So the zoning board has already dealt with this concept of granting the variance. From the zoning board's perspective, really nothing else is changing here. I actually didn't think we needed to come to the zoning board because this is a prior existing non-conforming lot, but Gene, in consultation with council, said because we're expanding the use, we require a variance from the zoning board. I respectfully disagree, but it was a lot easier to apply for the variance than it was to pursue a disagreement. And like I said, I don't think the zoning board should have a difficult time finding the requirements for a variance. I'm going to jump. I had a big long presentation for the planning board that I'm going to skip over because I don't think you guys really care. But as you know, under variance law, that we have to look at the lot specifically, and that doing the circumstances based on soil conditions, shape, or topography of the land, and especially this land, but not the zoning district generally. A little enforcement would be hardship, and that the relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or derogation of the bylaw. And this is kind of where the telecommunications facility plays into the variance criteria. We're very limited in where we can go for telecommunications facilities. The town has a very extensive zoning bylaw with respect to what they require for telecommunications facilities. We need substantial setbacks. We need visual mitigation, so basically undeveloped lots. We need lots of a particular size to meet these setbacks. We need lots that, from a telecommunications perspective, satisfy the coverage objective. We kind of need to be above the hill, not behind the hill, things like that. So, that creates the necessity of being here as opposed to anywhere else in the zoning district. It limits our ability to go anywhere in town. And we did extensive due diligence in that respect. We looked at the town zoning bylaw, we looked at the land use in the area, and the town actually kind of encouraged us to go down in the Route 20 corridor where it was an existing commercial zoning district. However, as you know, as you go through Route 20, that's a very heavily developed area. All the lots are used for commercial purposes. They're all smaller lots that don't meet the setback requirements that we need to satisfy. It's also, there's a lot of wet down there as you get closer to the river. And so, we established I hope to the satisfaction of the planning board that we have to get into the residential zone and not in the commercial zone to meet all the other requirements of your zoning bylaw. And the hardship is doing that. There's really no place else for us to go here because of the zoning bylaw, because of land use, because of the requirement to satisfy the coverage objective. They're really, and we submitted substantial data to the planning board in that regard, that, we looked at other properties, we looked at other thoughts, putting it, closer to Brookfield Ave, maybe on the other side of the hill, but that would have been far more visible to the residential neighborhood north of Route 20, and also would cause conflict with existing sites along the Mass Pike corridor in Sturbridge. Just the fact that there's no other available land or structures at which that we could utilize for telecommunications facility creates the hardship. I think not only is there not a detriment to the public, but there's actually a substantial benefit to the public. We all know that better telecommunications enhances public safety and services the public good. The one thing that I can say definitively over the last 10 years in Sturbridge is more people have cell phones. More people are relying upon their cell phones as their only source of telecommunications. People are cutting the cord. I think Commonwealth of Massachusetts is over 50% where people are using their cell phones as their only source of telecommunications and have cut their landline. And that's actually gotten more critical during the pandemic when people are trying to educate from home and using their cell phones, work from home using their cell phones. And so it requires a better signal, and certainly the better signal is better public benefit. Like I said, there's already an existing driveway. So there's really nothing that's going to change from the neighborhood perspective. These facilities are unmanned, so there'll be about 6 weeks of construction activity, maybe a little bit more because we got to get up the hill, but we're talking like 8 weeks of construction activity. And then after it's unmanned. Someone might come by once a month to check on it to make sure the fence is intact, but a lot of the electronics are remotely monitored. Heat and smoke are remotely monitored, so there's no traffic, there's no impact on the neighborhood, there's no change in the traffic patterns or pedestrian access or anything like that. It's a very passive type facility. The staff actually looked at it, and and I think they looked at it both in the context of the variance and with the overlay of the telecommunications facility, and said that we met the three criteria for a zoning variance. One that the board has already made findings with respect to the existing driveway and the lack of frontage. So there is the uniqueness there, and and we're not really changing it in that regard. So I don't think we are in a permitted zone with waivers from the planning board for this type of facility, so it's not a detriment to the public good. We provided lots of photographic evidence to the zoning board that shows that, given the setback, given the the heavy vegetative buffer there, even year-round, even when the leaves are off the trees, there's still dense foliage that mitigates the visual impact of this, so there's really no detriment to the surrounding neighborhood. And then, like I said, the federal government has been very involved in wireless telecommunications infrastructure siting. They adopted laws about 25 years ago to encourage the development of telecommunications. The Telecommunications Act doesn't say that the town has to approve every application. It just says that you can't deny an application without sufficient reasons. You can't deny an application if the result of that would be an effective prohibition of telecommunication signals. And to be fair to the town, I think they have approved several, they've denied a few, but I think the town has been very thoughtful with telecommunications infrastructure siting, but notwithstanding the existing facilities both in Sturbridge and Brimfield, and that there's still a need for better telecommunications. And that also plays into what the chair read at the opening. The federal government has done an immense amount of research with respect to the safety of these type of facilities. There are facilities in town much closer to residential and commercial establishments where people live. The zoning bylaw actually encourages us to put these on existing structures if possible. And if we were closer to Worcester and there were 30-story buildings, we could put them on residential structures, but there's nothing here in Sturbridge that has any kind of height that would allow us to do that. But the government has basically said, as long as we show compliance with all the federal regulations, which we've provided to the planner and the planning board, that the town really can't take that into consideration in its deliberations. Like I said, you don't have to say yes, but you just can't say no without sufficient reason. And given the substantial setbacks, the minimal visual impact, the no detriment to the town, I don't see any reason why the zoning board would deny this, or even the planning board would deny it. So with that, I'd open up for questions. I have lots of pictures and maps and site plans if anyone wants to look at stuff specifically, but I'd almost defer to the board. If they had any specific questions, I could answer them with graphics if necessary.
Before, just 1 second. We have David Maxon here.
Yes, he's joining us remotely, David Maxon.
Should we hear from him before we open it up for
Yes.
questions?
Here's David. David, sorry I didn't unmute us earlier. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can hear us now.
Thank you. David Mack.
We can't hear him.
All right, we can't. David, could you hold a minute? I need them to try to adjust the volume.
Okay.
Okay, there you are.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Hear me now.
We can.
Great, thanks. My name is David Maxon. I've been hired by the town to review this application before the zoning board and the application to the planning board for a special permit. I've looked at all of the application materials. And for those of you who don't know me, I've been helping towns review permit applications for a long time, decades. And I have provided some assistance to the town of Sturbridge in the past. Yeah, from a variance perspective, it seems like a fairly simple question. Does this request meet the threshold for the zoning board to grant a variance? And I would reinforce some of the things that Mr. Parisi said about the fact that the planning board has aesthetic criteria in the zoning bylaw. It has safety criteria. It has traffic criteria. There's all kinds of things that the planning board reviews when it's reviewing a special permit application for a wireless facility. So in that respect, the planning board, if a variance is granted, the planning board has an opportunity to look at this proposal and look at all of the potential alternatives, if there are any, and make a decision as to what's best for the town and as to whether or not the Telecommunications Act comes into play. it's a little more difficult in a variance hearing to do the Telecommunications Act thing because we're not really turning over all of the soil that the planning board would be turning over in looking at the application. Because those of you who have looked at the zoning bylaw can see there's just a whole bunch of criteria the planning board has to review. And because of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, it has to also consider the possibility that if it were to deny that special permit, whether or not there really are viable alternatives. So if we just keep it focused on the variance, I had sent a memo to Jean last week, and that's been copied into her statement, and then I followed up this morning with a more detailed discussion of things. And if we could put up, either for me to share my screen or if you could put up my report and show the image on page 2 that I copied out of the applicant's radio engineering report. I just want to show the terrain because I think that's a really key thing.
You have that? You want me to try to pull it up?
I just, David, you should be able to share your screen now. Did you get the?
Okay, you want me to share. Let me see if I'm sharing the right thing.
Yep, you are.
Looks like I am. Okay, good. Everyone can see that?
Yes.
All right. So, as I'm sure you're familiar with the terrain, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. The way this north end of Stallion Hill projects up against the Quinebaug River, and Route 20 it forces those two things to sort of wind around the end of the hill, the north end. And the tower, as you can see, is not on the summit of the hill, because actually these days having towers on summits of hills are not necessarily good for wireless facilities because they actually cover too much and cause interference within the network and sometimes have capacity problems. So what they've done is they've come slightly off the peak of the hill, and they've got it at a spot where if you can imagine that you were standing on a boulder looking over the trees down into the valley, that you have a clear view to Route 20 and to the connecting roads that run north and south from it. And that's really special about this particular spot on this hill. And in that respect, there are not any other properties that really have that specific topographical advantage for wireless coverage. And I think that's a really key thing. And the other thing I noted is that another issue with cell towers in zoning bylaws is, and just in terms of mitigating their visual impacts, is if you can put it in the middle of a large wooded parcel so that it's away from active residential and recreational and other kinds of uses, you don't get close-up views of it. You don't have to look at it out your back window or your bedroom window or whatever. And you don't have to look at it every time you hop on the road to go to leave your neighborhood to go shopping. And this location, this parcel, because it's large and it's wooded and does not have a dense residential development around it the way some do, it's also advantageous. In terms of the alternatives that we could look at, Mr. Parisi did mention briefly that his exploration of doing something on the opposite side of Route 20 on the high ground, but there's a lot more residential development on the other side. And as he pointed out, it is much closer to an existing cell tower that's right along the Mass Pike to the north, and is more likely to be inefficient and cause interference with the existing cell tower. So being south of Route 20 is advantageous in terms of coverage. and also, I think, in terms of visual impact. So, barring doing something like that on the opposite side of Route 20 on the high ground, you really would need to have at least 2 towers somewhere in the sort of the valley area to get coverage on both sides of the point that the foot of the hill creates. And then you get into the issues with the zoning bylaw where it says we'd rather not have multiple towers. We'd rather have, if we can, a single tower in an area that multiple wireless carriers occupy. So if there are alternatives, it'll take a lot of due diligence to figure out what they might be and whether or not they're viable economically and viable in terms of construction, viable in terms of availability of property. So if the board finds that it cannot grant this variance strictly under the state law principles, and it looks instead at the Telecommunications Act to see whether or not it must grant the variance, that's a much more difficult question to answer. And I can't give a black and white answer to that question. I can simply say that it will take probably 2 towers and a tremendous amount of due diligence to figure out whether there is a viable alternative to what is proposed at this site. And then I made some comments in my report about things like hardship, and that really is kind of getting out of my bailiwick because that's something that you folks on the zoning board have a lot more experience with, kind of interpreting what the state law and state courts have considered over the years to be a valid form of hardship. But I did sort of pose the idea that the hardship here is, to an extent, as Mr. Parisi is suggesting, is something that's sort of a shared hardship that all funnels back to the wireless company, the tower company rather, Vertex, that's providing services to wireless companies that provide service to the general population. And that if this can't be done, it's going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to do it from 2 or more other locations in the nearby area. And so that's kind of the angle on the hardship that I'm seeing. Let me just quickly scroll through, and I apologize for making you dizzy, see if there's any other quick things to comment about. I did talk about coverage and the target areas. So that's basically the focus that I put on this report for the zoning board's review of variance. I do have a much more detailed report that went to the planning board to provide information to the planning board regarding its criteria for reviewing special permit applications.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, David. Okay, so, Josh, do you have any questions whatsoever for,
Yeah, a couple questions. Is this Vertex's first project in Sturbridge?
In Sturbridge, yes.
And then I suppose that, I know David mentioned a site north of 20, closer to Interstate 90. Is that a Verizon?
No, I can, if you want to share my screen again, I can show you. There's existing infrastructure, let's see. There are existing sites. There's a big tower along the Mass Pike that Verizon, these are just specifically Verizon locations. There's a big tower right at the intersection of 20 and 84 at the State Police Barracks. And then there's another one down on 31 going farther east. And then there's a site in Brimfield that, does kind of cover stuff to the Sturbridge line. And notwithstanding that, we're proposing to build something here, kind of cover the gap along Route 20, coming into downtown and Main Street, and then specifically the Old Sturbridge Village neighborhood as well. So, and that's really what this is designed.
And then my last question, maybe Gene, you can help me on this, but in the second required finding involving hardship, it mentions hardship for the owner, and I'm wondering who is the owner in this case? Is it the landowner, the site owner?
So it's that there's a hardship caused by the soil condition, shape, or topography, and that could be for the
The
applicant as
applicant.
well, for Verizon, because this would create, if the board finds that way, that the soil shape and topography cause a hardship financially, but also if you consider the provision of the telecommunication, the wireless service in the area, and not being able to find another site that may be able to be developed, as Mr. Maxon said, with one facility, you may need to build two facilities, and it may be at greater cost and expense. So financial hardship to the applicant, and then also lack of service, providing hardship to basically to the area and people passing through the area as well. So kind of multi-pronged hardship.
Oh,
David?
Can I add to that?
Please.
I have been involved in hundreds of these kinds of hearings over the years, and I am not an attorney, so I'm not giving legal advice, but I can at least say that in my experience, I have seen it recognized in some cases that because a party like Vertex has a leasehold interest in a part of the property with its leased area, that it might be considered an extension of the owner. And that if that's something you have a question about, you might check with counsel about. But so I've seen variances granted kind of in that respect, that the applicant is standing sort of in the shoes of the owner, and has that sort of an interest in the use of the property in that way.
okay.
Thank you, David. That's helpful.
No, that's it for now.
Liz?
Yeah, it's not really a question. So this property was divided with the 100-foot frontage in the 1950s. There was no zoning
Right.
at that time.
That's correct.
So it also was given a variance later on in 1989 or 1990 for, that's when the house was built, that's on the property now?
That's correct.
Okay. No, and so you don't plan on building any other road except that using the driveway that's existing and then following the cart trail?
Yeah, exactly. I know we had a site walk with the planning board. There's a, if you go on the property now, there's a paved driveway that services the house, and then the owner has a barn there. And then up behind the barn, there's an existing cart path that goes through the woods. We really just build the driveway for construction purposes. We need to get a tower up there. We need to get electronic equipment and some concrete. After that, a pickup truck could drive up there now. We tried to do it during the site visit.
Don't go with a car.
And 2 days before we went up there, a tree had fallen down and impeded access, so we had to walk. The landlord didn't even know about it. And so we'll put in a little bit of gravel and level out the places just a little bit. It's not construction; it's just facilitating getting the construction vehicles up there. And then after that, it's really unmanned, and no one goes up there. We don't plow. We don't need winter access. We don't, if someone needed to go up there in the winter, they'd either hike up or bring a snow vehicle or plow it as necessary, but certainly not on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, all right, I'll ask
We can-
one more question. How far is that? Like, how long is that trail, like from the house up to the tower?
Ask Jean, she walked it.
It's
pretty far.
Yeah, it's several hundred feet.
Yeah.
Barely-
Like
I
a football
think
field length or more?
More.
I thought I had something that said the setbacks. We're, from Stallion Hill Road, we're almost 1,000 feet.
Yeah, I was going to say about
1,000 feet from the
1,200, I
road?
think, yeah.
From Stallion Hill.
See that house?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay,
It's pretty far up there.
yeah. All right, thank you.
Tom?
So I just had a couple of general questions. The actual, like, how far does each tower, like, so you had a bunch of different towers showing there. How far do they reach within the means of the area?
It's hard to say because we don't live in a flat world. So it's very amorphous based on topography. The signal doesn't get above hills. It also gets impeded by, we call it clutter, but it's really vegetation. And so when you look at something like this, what this tells me is that and what the colors are the different degrees of coverage in Sturbridge based on the existing facilities. There's a facility in Sturbridge right along the Mass Pike that, given its location, covers the Mass Pike, I'm guessing for a mile or a couple miles along the Mass Pike, but given a hill up here on Brookfield Ave doesn't go that far. So every site has a very amorphous coverage blob based on the different topography.
Yeah, 'cause I'm just thinking for the townspeople, it'd be good to know, just for everyone's, say, how
Right.
much this would help people, like, mile radius wise with this. I don't know if you know
What
that.
this is designed to do is provide very good coverage along the Route 20 corridor, going to the Brimfield border, and then also very specifically in the Sturbridge Village area. It's actually interesting because if you look at the coverage maps, there's actually coverage where the site is because it's way at the top of the hill, and you can get a very clear signal from the existing facilities. But a quarter mile away down in the Route 20 corridor, because you're in a valley there, that's where the signal is impeded. And then also the Sturbridge Village is being blocked from other topographical impediments. So it's there's no rule of thumb in a flat world. They might go out 5 miles, but in a general rule, it's a couple of miles, just based on topography.
Also, I see here there's future lease areas. Is this for more towers?
No, we lease a 75 by 75, but we build a 60 by 60, just in case. Telecommunications equipment is actually getting smaller and smarter. We used to, the telecommunication company used to build shelters, like little rooms, and put all the telecommunications equipment inside. But over time, as the electronics get smaller, they're using smaller and smaller footprints. But just in case we need more fence space, we lease a little bit more area. But like I said, the trend is toward using less and less area. And we build out 60 by 60 just to make sure that we do all the clearing at one time, so that if we have to add more equipment, there's plenty of space in there.
Yeah, it's and just aesthetically, I know this isn't our part at all, but is that what the tower is looking like?
Yeah, it's called a monopole. It's just a single pole, almost like a light pole. All of the cabling goes up inside, and then there'll be antenna arrays. This is called a monopole. If you look at the one over by the state police, which is very visible, that's called a lattice tower. It's like an erector set with a bunch of different numbers. This is a much different design. I think the one going down 31 towards the shopping plaza is a monopole as well.
Branches going off, they make look like trees.
Be careful what you wish for. There's
They're not pretty looking.
Not.
in Charlton, right behind the rest stop on Route Mass Pike, there was a attempt to make it look like a tree, and over time the needles start falling off. Over time, as you add more antennas, you take off branches, and that is the classic Charlie Brown Christmas tree. It's the ugliest thing, and I'm embarrassed to say I'm in an industry that built that. But so, and this is more of a planning board issue, and I'm sure David talked about it, but the more you try to disguise these things to look like something else, the more you call attention to it. I had, actually, it was the zoning board said, you can't put lipstick on a pig. And I took offense to that. However, it's kind of sort of true. You can't, make it look, it's a cell tower. And you've got multiple other ones in town. We've got, thousands throughout the Commonwealth. I actually don't find them offensive. I find them reassuring. I drive around a lot. I go to places where there's poor coverage. So when I see the cell tower, I say, wow, I can get a signal and people can call me. So.
Any other questions?
My question. No, I actually
Mary Ann?
have a question. So this is a Verizon tower, correct?
Yes.
So will there be other carriers added to that? Because we all know Verizon
Yes.
carrier out there.
One of the requirements of your zoning bylaw is that we build it to be a multi-carrier, co-locatable, they call it in our world. And the reason for that is when I first started doing this 20 years ago, Verizon started building its own towers, and AT&T started building its own towers, and the other telecommunications. And because they're competitors, they didn't play together in the same sandbox. And when Verizon tried to go on the AT&T tower, they said, it never happened. And so the folks like Vertex came into the market, and we're agnostic. We lease to anybody. But we're also very thoughtful. We build facilities that are with the requisite height. That's why we're asking for waivers from the planning board for height, because the requirement is that we build a co-locatable facility that requires more height. So, we've got a commitment from Verizon, but we build it with the height and the structural integrity and the land space to make sure that others, and we find that over time, once Verizon puts something up, AT&T wants to be there because then Verizon will have a competitive advantage because they'll have better coverage and service. Verizon, AT&T will be here next year, and T-Mobile and other telecommunications. So we're very thoughtful.
And they'll go on the same tower?
Yeah, the state police one is actually a great example because you just see it, and not so much from the erector set, but each different telecommunications company has a platform that they intend, and the platforms are separated by height. So this facility, I think, is 130 feet tall. Verizon will attach antennas at 125 feet, and then AT&T will attach it at 115 feet, and then T-Mobile will be, or different platforms, so that they don't have radio interference with each other, but also physical interference with each other. So, and that's one of the issues that we have to satisfy at the zoning board, that where we need the extra height to satisfy that requirement, that we are making it accommodating to multiple.
Thank you for your clarification.
Thank you. So that's a yes, they would
Yeah,
go on the
that's
same
good.
tower.
I didn't want 3 towers for 3
Yeah,
different.
exactly.
Yeah.
Any,
And also to avoid more towers. David had mentioned an alternative might be to build multiple towers in other locations. Well, it's hard enough to find willing landowners. It's hard enough to find land that satisfies your very extensive zoning bylaw. It's hard enough to find land that satisfies the needs of telecommunications engineers, the radio frequency engineers, and then it's hard to find something that doesn't have a significant visual, which is a limiting factor in your zoning bylaw. So, saying the alternative is more towers seems counterproductive to the town's bylaw, which is trying to limit the amount of.
any other questions from the board? Questions from the audience? No? Okay, then. So we can start finding the findings. I'm going to keep the public hearing, open in case we have questions while we're doing the findings. Okay? So finding number 1 is soil conditions, shape, or topography of the property, which conditions especially affects the property but does not generally affect other property in the zoning district. So what we need to find is that this site where the tower is going has a unique problem or whatever. And let's just remember that this property was already issued a variance few years ago. So, and nothing in the property has changed to make it like we shouldn't. But, so let's do number one first. Do we think that the property is unique in this area? I mean, it has ledge, it has, there's a steep grade to it. Do we agree that the finding, what are the wishes of the board? What do you think?
I do. I think it does. I
I think it
they make
qualifies.
the case pretty well that the location is ideal.
Yes, I agree with findings for soil condition, shape, and topography. It's already had a variance, nothing's changed, and I believe it meets the requirements for the finding.
Do we all
as
agree?
well, yes.
We agree because, I mean, it slopes, there's ledge, so do we all agree on that? Can I have a vote? I mean,
Do we vote each finding?
we're gonna vote each finding, yes. Should we add more, Jean, or?
I'd prefer if you were a little more specific with your findings. So what I'm hearing, if I can maybe guide
Yeah.
or aid, is that the board agrees that the topography, shape, in soil, the ledge conditions of the parcel are sufficient, that you're finding that it's unique in its nature and that it meets
I'll make this
finding number one for the soil conditions. And in addition, the property was granted a variance in 1989 to the frontage, and all of those same findings were made, and nothing has changed with the property since that time. You didn't remove any ledge, you didn't flatten out the slope, you didn't change any of that. That's what I'm hearing the board say that you believe.
Yes, do we agree? All in favor? All in favor?
I need a motion and a second.
Well, Liz.
Liz, motion,
I
okay.
need to make a separate motion, or can I just say so moved from what you said?
You can say so moved.
So moved. So I make that motion.
Yeah, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Okay.
Okay, unanimous. Okay, so now we are at hardship, finding number two, that there is a hardship caused by the soil conditions, shape, or topography. So, what does the board believe for this one? What do you think?
I agree.
But what is the hardship, request that the applicant for the variance of the frontage bias community is shown in the parcel? Okay, the hardship would, we're not at hardship, yes, we are at
Yes,
hardship.
you are at the hardship.
That there were no other sites, right, no other sites, and the applicant, in this case,
So really, what was basically said in my report and then in Mr. Maxon's is that there were circumstances related to the topography, shape, and soil conditions of the property that would cause a hardship to the applicant. The applicant also has a leasehold interest in the property, and this appears to provide the most cost-effective option to providing service, as this location will likely provide the coverage that the applicant would need perhaps two or more other locations to fill the same gap. So that's what you're hearing from Mr. Maxon and from my report. So if that is the finding of the board, that's what you could use.
so moved? So moved.
Yeah,
So moved. Okay, second? Okay, all in favor?
I'm a little stuck on this one because of the owner situation. I feel like it would say applicant if it meant applicant.
I'm not following you.
So the hardship needs to be on, the party subjected to the hardship is the owner per the, is this a state statute?
Yes.
That's the zoning bylaw, which mirrors the state statute, and it specifically talks about the petitioner or appellant. It doesn't talk about owner.
Doesn't say owner.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and because we have a leasehold interest, we are a authorized petitioner to the zoning board. So it's very clear under your local bylaw and state law, which that mirrors, that we have the right to request a variance, and it's our hardship, not the owner's.
Okay, yeah, this one's more clear.
Yeah. That's recited right from the bylaw. Sorry about that.
Yep, it's okay.
So are you?
Yeah.
Are you good? Okay, so all in favor? Okay, abstained and nobody else. Okay, so that one's unanimous. All right, so now the finding for number 3, without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of such a bylaw. So now we need, well, actually, it's a benefit. It actually is going to benefit the neighborhood by
one,
giving
To
more,
me, is a no-brainer, yeah.
right. So, motion to find request of the
So I think if you refer back to my report,
Yep.
The variance would not be a detriment to the public good as, number one, the property's already received a variance to the frontage requirement to allow for construction. The existing driveway would be used for construction of the
Yep.
facility, and then it will be unmanned thereafter. So it will not be adding any additional burden of traffic
Right.
or impact to the neighborhood. And the bylaw specifically allows for wireless communication facilities in this zoning district, subject to the criteria that the planning board needs to find during their hearing process. And then additionally, as Mr. Maxon stated, it will actually provide coverage, greater coverage, so actually could be a benefit to the public and not derogate, not be a detriment to the public good, excuse me.
Okay. So moved. Okay, second? Second?
Second.
Josh, okay, all in favor? Okay, unanimous.
So now you should take a vote on the variance itself. So you made a vote on each one of
Right.
the findings, so now it should be a motion to grant the findings because of all the reasons that you found.
Right, okay, so that's what we're going to do. First, we're going to do a motion to grant the variance, and then we are going to do a second motion to grant the variance under the federal,
Maybe, maybe not. I want Mr.
Oh, okay.
Maxon's opinion on that. So why don't you take this one first?
okay, do I have a motion to grant the variance okay, we're going to grant the variance from Article 14, Section 300-14.2, Table of Standards, which requires 150 of frontage on a street to permit the construction and operation of a wireless communications facility where 100 feet is provided, to 92 Stallion Hill Road, Vertex Towers LLC, because they meet all 3 criteria for granting a variance. What else? And then all according to plans and documents
Bless
as submitted.
So you need that motion, yes.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Okay, second? Okay, all in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Now, okay.
David, would you recommend that they also vote under the federal standard, or do you think that they don't need to do that? Defer to your expertise here.
It's a good question. Let me give you a long answer that is not legal advice, but the way the Telecommunications Act works is kind of strangely that if you were denying it under state and local regulations, you would then consider whether you need to bypass your denial under state and local regulations and invoke the Telecommunications Act to preempt your intention to deny it, if that makes any sense at all. So it's a fallback. If you're headed towards a denial, you then go to this extra gathering of evidence and documentation to support whether or not you can approve it under the Telecommunications Act. So conceivably, you could approve it under the Telecommunications Act as a backstop to someone trying to appeal this. But the other aspect of this is that you have not gone through the level of due diligence that the planning board will go through to examine the Telecommunications Act implications. So it might be better just to leave it as it is, because the variance that you just granted is a variance, and it can move on to the planning board for that more thorough review.
Okay, so then we don't, that's it. You're done with us? All of it. Thank you, David.
Thank you,
Thank
David.
you. Thank you. Okay, okay.
I'll see you next Tuesday, David.
All
Thank
right,
you.
now I need a motion to close the public hearing. Second?
Second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing? Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and good luck.
Gene said you guys were mean, you don't want to go to this.
Thank you.
I don't think she said that.
No, she's not, no.
Got us on a good day.
Josh, I'm sorry about the owner.
No, that's
wherever
right.
I wrote that.
I don't know.
I must have written.
Ends in a
Thank you for
semicolon.
coming.
It says, it just ends with hardship for the owner, semicolon, so
Oh, under isotrope. Oh,
Yeah.
under David's report,
Yeah.
not mine. Okay, I feel better.
well, he says it says it came from yours,
Okay,
but
wait,
I
we're
don't,
not done yet.
Right.
We didn't adjourn yet.
I don't know if was yours in the folder? I don't,
Oh, the electronic one? Oh, I'm not sure. She put it in the hard copies, which are, you didn't
okay.
pick it up downstairs.
What's this?
A little late, but here you go.
No, I have that, but I don't have,
Oh,
yeah, I don't think I have,
Oh.
okay.
So I have to tell you a true story. A week ago, I was driving on the Mass Pike, we were up in Vermont, during the big Sunday snowstorm, and they closed the Mass Pike right here in Sturbridge or Palmer because of tractor trailer truck, and I was stuck right behind it. And they made us come back, and they made us drive the wrong way down the Mass Pike, back to Palmer, and then drive through Route 20 all the way. And I was with my family in multiple cars, and I said, "Oh, we're coming into Sturbridge. We can stop at the barbecue place." And so I started calling my daughter and saying, "Stop at the barbecue place," and I couldn't get a cell phone signal. And I was screaming, "You gotta stop, you gotta stop, you gotta stop." And they drove right past it. And so now at least I got out early enough so I can go to the barbecue place before I have to go home.
Oh, okay, good, excellent. Okay, town planner update. Do you have anything, Jean, for us?
Your next meeting is February
February
21st. We did receive an application today for an accessory dwelling unit, so I haven't
okay.
reviewed it yet, but you will be having a meeting, so please mark your calendars.
Okay, so February 21st, we have a meeting. Okay, any old or new business? Anybody? Anything? No? I think that's it then, right? Jean, you have anything else for us?
No, I do
Okay,
not.
motion to adjourn?
Those guys, you guys.
Come on, a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second?
Whoops, wait a minute, I'm taking minutes, I forgot. Whose motion?
Mary Ann, motion
Okay.
to adjourn.
Yep.
Second? Tom? Okay, all in favor? Okay, we are done.